All right, this video, I would strongly suggest you watching its entirety. Looks like we're about to enter into the beginnings of sorrows. We got some things to discuss.
Matthew 24, verse 6 through 7, King James Version. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom.
Camera speed.
Sound production, take one.
As the world debates the military response, 19 days since the worst terror attack in Israeli history, its leaders are trying to frame the stakes, today laying bare the brutality in graphic detail. Here's Raf Sanchez.
It felt like there couldn't possibly be new horror left to see. No brutality that hadn't already been shared or live streamed. But tonight, with global attention turning to the spiraling death toll in Gaza, Israel's military trying to keep the focus on the massacre that sparked the war, inviting NBC News and other journalists to a screening of raw video from the October 7th Hamas terror attack.
I have some sense of what's in this footage, and I've been trying to prepare myself, but I'm still anxious about what we're going to see.
For 46 minutes, we sat in stunned silence, watching video filmed by Hamas and filmed by their victims. Much of it had never been seen before. And while Israel's military is not releasing the clips because they're so graphic, they allowed us to describe what we saw.
Inside Israel, people are seeing a very different picture of the war from the rest of the world and from what you've just heard, with IDF soldiers documenting their military offensive in real time. Correspondent Jeremy Diamond reports on this trend unfolding on social media.
This is a how-to video on how to blow up a mosque in Gaza. Format is internet fluent. The content is very real. Filmed, edited, and posted on Instagram by an Israeli soldier. It's one of dozens reviewed by CNN. For many in 2024, social media is everyday life. Israeli soldiers are no different, except they're fighting Israel's largest and most brutal war in decades. In video, after video, after video, soldiers document the destruction of Gaza and rejoice. They film detonations to use as wedding invitations. Among them are would-be comedians, whose videos satirizing the war show the devastation in Gaza. At times, they openly defy their military's message about protecting civilians and film themselves destroying civilian shops. Israel is under increasing scrutiny over the war in Gaza. These videos may well be adding fuel to that criticism.
But Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory.
Israeli forces have left Khan Yunis, and this is what they've left behind. A city unrecognizable after months of fighting. The Gazans who cautiously started returning today found nothing to come back to.
I came to see my house and the houses of my cousins. They are uninhabitable. Everything is destroyed. Nothing is suitable for living. I was taken aback by what I saw, and I'm going back to my tent.
Israeli forces might have destroyed almost everything in sight here, but they failed to destroy Hamas. Rockets were fired from the city hours after Israeli troops had gone. This war is far from over.
But Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory.
Emergency workers scaled rubble inside Iran's embassy compound in Syria after a suspected bombing by Israeli warplanes on Monday. Tehran said the strike killed 7 military advisors, including 3 senior commanders. The target, according to Iranian state media, was top Revolutionary Guards commander Mohammad Reza Zahedi. He had been a senior commander in Iran's elite Quds force, the Corps' overseas arm, according to the Guards. Iran's ambassador to Syria, Hossein Akbari, said Tehran's response would be harsh. Syria's foreign minister condemned the attack. Its state media cited a military source saying Israel launched the attack from the occupied Golan Heights and that its air defense system shot down some of the missiles. The strike appeared to signal an escalation in Israel's war against Iran's regional proxies. Israel has long targeted Iranian military installations in Syria, as well as the proxies. Monday's attack marked the first time Iran's embassy compound itself had been hit. Since the attack on Israel nearly 6 months ago by Palestinian group Hamas, which is also backed by Iran, Israel has ramped up strikes in Syria against Iran's guards, as well as Hezbollah, the Tehran-backed Lebanese armed group.
Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory.
Bring in NBC once again for correspondent Josh Letterman standing by for us. Josh, bring us up to date. What more we're learning?
Well, Yasmin, we're learning a little bit more from the Israeli military about what has taken place in the last few minutes. The IDF now says that multiple drones were launched from Iranian territory toward Israel. Now, as Aaron David Miller was correctly saying, and the IDF is now echoing, it's going to take several hours for those drones to actually arrive in the vicinity of Israel. But in the meantime, the Israeli military and its Air Force are now undertaking what they are calling a defensive operation. They are implementing what they are calling an orderly plan to deal with this.
Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory.
President Biden returned to the White House earlier from Delaware. CBS News foreign correspondent Imtiaz Tayeb is in Tel Aviv. Imtiaz, tell us what you are seeing and what you are hearing on the ground.
We had an extremely worrying night here in Israel, where in the last hour alone, we've heard the sound of sirens and loud booms, including in areas right across the country, which has just rattled so many people after dozens of drones and potentially missiles entered Israeli airspace. In fact, I believe we have some footage of that. Again, you can hear the sound of sirens blaring, and you can see some of those interceptions. Now, we understand the U.S., Israel, and the Jordanian military intercepted much of that, and so too has Israel's incredibly sophisticated missile defense systems. We also understand that Israel's war cabinet is meeting in Tel Aviv here at this very hour, and we're also hearing reports that there is at least one casualty. Again, reports that there is at least one casualty. The concern is that could change in the coming hours following this unprecedented attack from Iran on Israel inside Israeli territory, something Iran has never done, but warned it would, as you so rightly said, following last week's strike on its embassy in Damascus, destroying that building and killing that senior commando. Now, very quickly, the U.S. Embassy here in Jerusalem has told all U.S. government employees to shelter in place until further notice, and according to a security alert, that as these drones and missiles continue to be launched at Israel, that there's a lot of concern here for the safety of people. And again, finally, we've heard from Iran's foreign ministry, which said that they were responsible for tonight's attack. Ouija.
Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory.
Israel has said that, quote, there will be a response to the Iranian missile attack, that coming from the Israeli military chief just moments ago. This also comes as Israel weighs its response following Iran's missile attack on Saturday. World leaders, though, urging Israel not to retaliate. Saturday's attack included more than 300 missiles and drones, but 99% of them were intercepted. Several ballistic missiles reached Israeli territory, causing minor damage to an airbase.
think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall we had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.
So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.
One can combine other means of pressure with sanctions. I mentioned that explosion on August 17th. We could step up the pressure. I mean, look, people, Iranian submarines periodically go down. Someday one of them might not come up. Who would know why? We can do a variety of things if we wish to increase the pressure. I'm not advocating that, but I'm just suggesting that this is not a either-or proposition of, it's just sanctions has to succeed or other things. We are in the game of using covert means against the Iranians.
We are in the game of using covert means against the Iranians.
We could get nastier at that.
All right, so as you can see, with all of the media propaganda and they're beating the war drums, of Israel versus Iran now, right? And as you can see, that they've been, when I put the Patrick Clausen clip in there, is because you can see that this is something that they have been wanting to do. They've been wanting to attack Iran for years, right? Even if they, by means of covert means, even if they have to start it, they said that they wanted to do this, okay? But what we also need to discuss, we're gonna go to Matthew, and let's go to the scriptures and let's talk about the rumors of wars, right? We see that they're talking wars, but what does it mean about the rumors of wars? All right, so when we go to Matthew chapter 24, verses 4-6, it reads, "And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." So as you can see, he said there will be wars, but also rumors of wars. All right, now let's look at the definition of rumors. All right, so for all of us here in America, we know that we don't spell rumors with a U. We spell it R-U-M-O-R-S. So I just want to make sure we see this. What's the difference between rumors and rumors with the U in it? Rumors and rumors are both English terms, okay? So rumors is predominantly used in America, English, while rumors is predominantly used, the rumors with the O-U-R-S is predominantly used in British English, okay? Now, what does that mean? Rumor or rumors basically is the same thing, okay? So, well, a rumor is a currently circulating story or report of uncertain or doubtful truth, right? So remember, Jesus told us not to be deceived because there's some things that are doubtful truths, right? So when you see things on the media, don't just automatically assume that everything that you see is true. Right now, we're entering into the time of propaganda. So now I want you to see media propaganda.
Or it could have been the result of debris falling between the two of them. We just don't know right now, but we do know that at least 2 Scud missiles incoming were fired at Riyadh, and according to the Saudi military, they were both shot down. Charles Jaco, CNN, reporting live from Saudi Arabia. Look at this. Look at this shit. Look at it.
Believe that. Let me say hi.
The top 10 things about Saudi Arabia. Maybe we could shorten the list to 5.
Oh God, Geopolitics by Dan Quayle.
Je suis un journaliste américain. Wolf. Wolf.
CD, if you need to take cover, I notice that you've got your gas mask in your hands. If you need to put it on, please do so. If you need to take cover, please do so. If you are able to take a question, did you think that the possible threat would be over because it is now morning there? It's what, just after 6 o'clock in the morning?
The whole thing is everyone assumed that the threat would be over because it was early morning. But the thing about Saddam Hussein is that he has never done the expected, and right now we have, once again been surprised with the unexpected, an air raid, an apparent attack, although we can't say what the outgoing missiles hit, at approximately 20 after 7 in the morning Saudi Arabian time. People are looking up in the skies, scanning the skies to see what they can see. Do we see much of anything out there? Can we see much of anything? Okay, well, apparently there was some word of outgoing. Again, we cannot be specific about the direction. All right, we are now led to understand that there are also firings in another city in Saudi Arabia. CNN's Carl Rochelle is here with me, just came up. Carl, I know we can't be very specific given these restrictions, but within those parameters, what did you see?
Well, what I saw, I didn't see anything hit. I looked almost straight above us. There is a vapor trail coming from my right to my left, and there's a cloud of something. It looks like it might have been an explosion, a cloud. I'd say... My apologies for these putting on a gas mask. There hasn't been any gas dropped here that we could tell. You smell anything? No. You may smell some of the fumes from a missile exhaust going off. The missiles use a rocket, a cordite, some sort of burning. And we just heard a little thump just then. But
I have to apologize for that. I caught a whiff of something and felt momentarily dizzy. You're more experienced in military affairs than I am, but it might have been a little gas from the rocket exhaust.
We just saw fire, what appears to be from the Iron Dome trying to intercept. There's the sound. Another one. Another boom. Car alarms now going off. That happens because it rattles. It rattles. There's one. Okay. There. See it? There's 2. There's 4, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 incoming right now. Can you guys give me my helmet, please? There are 5.
Give me my helmet, please.
There's traces that are coming from the Iron Dome, trying to intercept rockets.
Now for Truth or Fake, our daily fact-checking segment. I'm joined by Catalina Marchand de Abreu. Catalina, in today's edition, Israel has been accused of sharing fake images showing Hamas atrocities on social media.
That's right, Monty. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu showed visiting U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken the horrific photos of infant victims killed by Hamas militants. These pictures were later posted on X on October 12th by the Prime Minister's office, where we see the horrifying photos of babies murdered and burned by the Hamas monsters. These photos were viewed over 7.5 million times on X since they've been published, as anti-Israel users accuse Israel of sharing fake photos created using artificial intelligence. Here we have some examples of these posts where these users blame Israel of sharing fake photos of Hamas atrocities. We've obviously edited out the images of the burned babies. Evidently, these photos are extremely graphic, and we've decided not to publish them ourselves, as users shared 2 different photos together with these claims. The first photo, this one of Ben Shapiro, American conservative journalist, sharing this photo of the burned baby. This photo later inserted into this online artificial intelligence software that detects whether images were created using artificial intelligence or not. And in this case, the software detected this image as being generated by artificial intelligence. Then the second photo being shared where we see this puppy, where users claim that this is the original photo, as Israel used a puppy rescue photo as the backdrop for the baby photo that was shared on the Prime Minister's account on X on October 12th.
Scrolling, it's all a lie. I stopped scrolling, it's all a lie. I just found another one. Check this out. This is today. I thought this looked familiar. This was from a few hours ago where they said that they hit the internal of the city of Israel. I thought it looked familiar, and it was. Boom. It's from Syria, March 17th this year. Same exact picture, redone again. Stop it, CNN. Stop it, ABC. Stop it, CBS. Stop with the daggum lies. Tell the truth. There was live footage, guys. Come on, do some research. There's live footage of what went down. A couple did strike around the military base, but all of this is propaganda that they're pushing. No way.
So as you can see right now, there's a narrative that's being painted, right? That Israel, has the right to defend itself. But we also understand from Patrick Clausen that they said if they had to, that they would be the ones who had initiated by covert means to provoke Iran into some things, right? So, but we see, what's going on with the Israel and the Hamas war. But what we need to understand that there's an even deeper, more sinister agenda that's going on. But now what I want to do is introduce you to one Albert Pike, because he had a more devious agenda that he was planning for the world as a whole. And now you can see, I get a lot of people who comment in my comment section talking about, well, what difference does it matter if what color the Israelites are? I keep telling you, it's about truth, right? Now you're going to see why they stole the Israelite identity, because they had a more ulterior, sinister, deceptive motive.
Albert Pike was one of the most colorful characters in American history. It is said that he was born on December 29, 1809 in Boston, was the eldest son of 6 children born to Benjamin and Sarah Andrew Pike. He studied at Harvard and later served as Brigadier General of the Confederate Army. He was one of the founding fathers of the head of the ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, being the Grand Commander of North America Freemasonry from 1859, and retained that position until his death in 1891. In 1869, he was the top leader of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Pike was said to be a Satanist who indulged in the occult, and he apparently possessed a bracelet which he used to summon Lucifer, with whom he had constant communication. He was the Grand Master of a Luciferian group known as the Order of the Palladium, or of Sovereign Council of Wisdom, it's also been called, which had been founded in Paris in 1737. Now, I tell you all of this because it is said that he received a vision from his mentor, Mr. Lucifer, I guess, on August 15th, 1871. And William Guy Carr, former intelligence officer in the Royal Canadian Navy, wrote a book called Satan, Prince of this World, in which he gives this information. He said that he received this information from a book written by Cardinal Caro Rodriguez in Santiago, Chile, who wrote in 1925 a book called The Mystery of Freemasonry Unveiled. And in this book, in 1925, it is said that he wrote a letter to a man named Mazzini in which he described this dream. And in the dream, he predicted 3 world wars. The First World War, he said, must be brought about, and I'm quoting from Albert Pike. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and German empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions.
In 1871, a secret society predicted 3 world wars in a detailed letter. The First World War was to allow the society to overthrow the powers of the Tsars in Russia. The conflicts between the British and the Germanic empires were to be used to instigate this war.
Now, students of history will know that Otto von Bismarck forged certain alliances between 1871 and 1898, which brought about this war, this World War I. And Otto von Bismarck here says that he was a co-conspirator with Albert Pike, and he was the one instrumental in bringing about the First World War. Well, that's the First World War. Then he dreams that there must be, he is given in this visionary dream, a Second World War. Now remember, this was in 1925 that it became public in this book written by a cardinal from Santiago, Chile, Rodriguez. He says, quote, "The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism will be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would then be restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm."
The Second World War was to be instigated by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. The aim was to destroy Nazism and make political Zionism strong enough to establish a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine.
Then he has this vision, in this vision, not only one world war and 2 world wars, but here comes the Third World War. He says, and I quote, "The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world." Yeah, that's what he says. The war, this was 1925. Please understand that. At least 1925. May go all the way back to 1871, as is purported to do, but at least it was written in a book and published in 1925. So he says, after World War I was just over a few years, and before World War II even started, he's now thinking about this Third World War, and it says that it will be caused by the differences between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the State of Israel, mutually destroy each other.
The Third World War would be between the political Zionists and Islam. The goal was for the war to be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism would mutually destroy each other, while other nations would be forced into the conflict until they were fully exhausted. In the aftermath, a social cataclysm greater than anyone has ever known would occur.
What it says. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm in which, in all its horror, will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin and savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. So he's against Christianity and he's against atheism. They're supposed to fight each other to the death, you see. Then, he says, everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowledge where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer.
Through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer.
That's what he says. Brought finally out in the public view. So he's saying that Lucifer will finally make himself, the good guy. He's going to save the world from these atheists who don't believe in deity and from these Christians who believe in the good God.
All right. So according to the Satanist Luciferian Albert Pike, we see that they had planned 3 world wars. And it seems like now with what's going on between Iran and Israel that they're bringing the 3rd World War into play. So when we go back to Albert Pike's letter, what we see, again, this letter was written on August 15th of 1871, okay? Then when we see what he talks about, that the 1st World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism, okay? So this is exactly what happened.
By Thursday, Nicholas II had abdicated the Russian throne. His palace was overrun by revolutionary troops, ending 304 years of Romanov rule over Russia. In November, Vladimir Lenin and his Bolsheviks seized control of the government. They had a much more hostile attitude towards the former monarchy, expelling many of the Romanovs' servants and restricting the family to a diet of army rations. Once the family was in, the basement room was sealed, and Yakov Yurovsky, their chief executioner, informed them they would be executed. Yurovsky and his men opened fire on the family, killing Nicholas and Alexandra.
Now, the next thing that we see after the 1st World War was that they issued the Balfour Declaration.
It's been 100 years since the British government issued the Balfour Declaration, a document that would later become a cornerstone for the creation of the State of Israel. But why is Britain celebrating its colonial legacy while glossing over the 100 years of conflict that followed? Let's go back to November 2nd, 1917, when British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour sent a letter to Lord Walter Rothschild, a leader in the British Zionist Federation. Balfour's letter expressed sympathy for Jewish Zionist aspirations at the heart of Zionism, a political ideology calling for Jews to return to Palestine. The Balfour Declaration said the UK would use their best endeavors to facilitate the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. So on that date, Zionism became an official objective of Britain's foreign policy. But the British had no legal authority to establish a home or a state for anyone in lands that they didn't own, a land where 92% of the local population were Muslims and Christians who were never consulted. And even though they didn't own the land, the British would soon control it. The lines on the map were in flux. That's because, well, World War I was going on and British Allied troops were advancing on Palestine. Just a few weeks after the Balfour Declaration was issued, British General Edmund Allenby conquered Jerusalem. The British Prime Minister at the time, David Lloyd George, called its capture a Christmas present for the British people.
All right, so after the First World War, one objective was to get rid of the Russian Tsar so that they could have atheistic communism set up, okay? But there was a second thing that they did, which was to issue the Balfour Declaration, all right? Now, according to this book, right, Against Our Better Judgment by Alison Weir, okay? I'm gonna read you, because a lot of people don't understand why the British did what they did, because they basically got blackmailed into having to give up Palestine to set up a sovereign state of Palestine by the Zionists because Britain was losing the war to Germany, okay? So let me read you in Alison Weir's book, and it reads, while Americans today are aware of many of these facts, few know that Zionism appears to have been one of these factors. Diverse documentary evidence shows that Zionists pushed for the U.S. to enter the war on Britain's side as part of a deal to gain British support for their colonization of Palestine. However, once the British were embroiled in World War I, and particularly during 1916, a disastrous year for the Allies in which there were 60,000 British casualties in one day alone, Zionists were able to play a winning card because, see, Britain was getting beat, right? While they previously had appealed to religious or idealistic arguments, now Zionist leaders could add a particularly powerful motivator, telling the British government that Zionists in the U.S. would push America to enter the war on the side of the British if the British promised to support a Jewish home in Palestine afterwards. Then in 1917, British Foreign Minister Lord Balfour issued a letter to Zionist leader Lord Rothschild. Known as the Balfour Declaration, this letter promised that Britain would view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object. Okay? So you see, America was used as a pawn because Britain was getting beat and Germany was about ready to beat them. So in order to preserve Britain, Britain promised to give, Palestine for the Jewish homeland. And so the Jews basically then went to America and had America to enter into the war. And that's how Germany was defeated. Okay. Next thing, after the Balfour Declaration was signed, they went in to get the Second World War. And according to Pike, this is what it was that the Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. Okay? So the purpose of World War II was to get, a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine because they wanted to bring the Jewish people into Palestine, right? Why? During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. All right, so now remember, the Europeans that were brought back into Palestine, a whole lot of those people are atheists or secularists. They do not believe in God and they do not believe in Christ, okay?
When Britain decided to leave in May of 1948, the Zionist paramilitary army was ready with a plan to colonize all of historic Palestine. We're talking about a large-scale ethnic cleansing. More than 700,000 local Palestinians were kicked out of their ancestral homes. Hundreds of Arab villages were razed to the ground, and 15,000 Palestinians were killed that year in several massacres. All this happened while tens of thousands of British soldiers were still in Palestine. Zionists declared their own state on May 14, 1948, and began the process of wiping the word Palestine off the map and deleting it from the historic record. And that continues to this day. 12 million descendants of those indigenous Palestinians refer to Israel's violent birth as al-Nakba, or the catastrophe. And every year when Israelis celebrate their state, Palestinians mark the systematic destruction of their society.
All right, so again, according to Alison Weir's book, right? You can get this off Amazon, all right? It reads, Fortune and ingathering of all Jews. The idea behind Zionism was to create a state where Jews worldwide could escape anti-Semitism. Combined with this was the belief that all Jews would and should come to the Jewish state in a massive ingathering of exiles. However, when it turned out that not enough Jews were coming of their own volition, a variety of methods were used to increase the immigration. Zionist leader David Ben-Gurion once told a gathering of Jewish Americans, Zionism consists of bringing all Jews to Israel. We appeal to the parents to help us bring their children here. Even if they decline to help, we will bring the youth to Israel. But I hope that this will not be necessary. There are various documented cases in which fanatical Zionists exploited, exaggerated, invented, or even perpetrated anti-Semitic incidents, both to procure support and to drive Jews to immigrate to the Zionist-designated homeland.
Did Israel's Mossad play a role in pushing Jews out of Iraq to populate Israel in the early 1950s? Well, according to British-Israeli historian Avi Schleim, the answer is yes. In a new autobiography detailing his childhood as an Iraqi Jew and his family's exile from Iraq to Israel, Avi Schleim claims to have uncovered undeniable proof of Israeli involvement in attacks that led to a mass exodus of Jews from Iraq to Israel in 1950 and 51. During those 2 years, there was a series of targeted bombings on the Jewish community in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad. Avi Shlaim says one of these attacks, which killed 4 Jews at the Mosada Shem Tov synagogue, was carried out by an Arab. The other bombings, he alleges, were the work of Israel's spy agency, the Mossad. And he says he reached this conclusion through extensive research, including an interview with a former Zionist operative and a detailed report from the Baghdad police archives. Avi Shlaim says in his book that Israel needed the manpower both to build the country and to boost numbers in the army. Israel, however, denies any involvement in the attacks on Jews in Iraq. Around 110,000 Jews of a population of roughly 135,000 emigrated from Iraq, where they were actually a crucial part of the local community and society. They fled as attacks on the Jewish community in Baghdad were becoming more widespread and their society was becoming more and more inhospitable. The emigrations came just 2 years after what Palestinians refer to as the Nakba in 1948, which saw 13,000 Palestinians killed and over 700,000 forcibly expelled from their lands, all to create the State of Israel in 1948. In his book, Avi Shlaim, who was born in Iraq, says the Zionist movement came along and actively worked to erase the common past, the religious tolerance and the coexistence between Arabs and Jews, between Israelis and Palestinians, between Hebrew and Arabic, and Judaism and Islam. He says, above all, Zionism has discouraged us from seeing each other as fellow human beings.
So according to Pike, it reads, the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the State of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere, the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. So again, you see, they want this final war to the point no one wins, to the point that this issues in absolute chaos, right? And then when you got so many people that's thinking, oh, well, we're going to pray and Jesus is coming back first and whatever, and when it doesn't happen, then that's when people are going to lose their faith. But when you understand what's going on, that's why this video is very important. When you understand what's going on, you know to hold on to the Most High even more. So this is why you pray and ask the Most High to fill you with the Holy Spirit in the name of Yahushua, Jesus the Christ, so that you will have the Spirit of the Most High in you and that nothing outside of you will be able to shake you. With that, thank y'all for watching. Y'all have a blessed and wonderful day. Peace.